This edition is going to be an interview with a woman by the name of Kay Carlson. Kay is a former pharmaceutical sales representative and also is included in the documentary films Prescription for Death and Making a Killing. And she has written a book and done a couple years of research on this book. And the title and subtitle will speak for itself. Diary of a Legal Drug Dealer. One drug rep dares to tell you the truth. And her book provides shocking evidence of the pervasive control that the pharmaceutical industry now has over healthcare. And it's my pleasure to welcome Kay. Kay, what a pleasure to meet you. How are you?
I'm very well, and it's very much a pleasure to be on your show this morning.
Thank you very much. Welcome. Why don't you first give the overview of your book and your experience, and then we'll get into the meat of it.
All right. My book is meant to alert the public on that there are dangerous side effects to many of the leading selling drugs, and that the pharmaceutical industry has the aim of selling drugs to everyone. That aim was established by former Merck CEO Henry Gadsden in the 1970s. He actually told Time magazine that he wanted to sell prescription drugs to everyone. He wanted to sell prescription drugs to healthy people. He wanted prescription drugs to sell like chewing gum. And that established the aim for Merck, and Merck being the largest at that time, everyone followed the leader. So it became the aim of the industry. It continues to be the aim of the industry. And what that aim does is to put a barcode on everyone's forehead. Every adult, every child, every infant has a barcode on their forehead with regard to the pharmaceutical industry. So I would like the public to be aware of that. In my book, I've given them so much evidence on what goes on behind the scenes, how the pharmaceutical industry, with their immense wealth, has influenced every aspect of medical care in the United States, every aspect. And that does not bode well for the public. You know, the majority of pharmaceutical drugs nowadays actually treat symptoms, and they do not get to the root cause of health problems, so that people are oftentimes never actually cured of an issue, of a health issue, because the symptoms are being treated, and unfortunately, so many of these drugs are then causing severe side effects, and people end up on multi-drug therapy. It's called therapy when in fact it's just multi-drug symptom adjustment. Mm-hmm. So I want the public to be aware of this, and so that they will feel like they should take responsibility for their own health, that they can no longer just give up the control of their health and say, well, my physician recommended this and wants me to go on these drugs. Well, physicians mean well, but their medical training from the moment they step into medical school is so controlled by the pharmaceutical industry. They learn to diagnose symptoms and to write prescriptions. I've had doctors say that to me. And this does not get to, so oftentimes, the root cause of health issues. And as far as drugging healthy people, why take a synthetic chemical and put it in a healthy body? That just doesn't make sense.
Excellent. In the intro, I mentioned that you are a former pharmaceutical sales representative. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background of how you got to where you are now?
Okay, it was purely, coincidence. I have an MBA in organization development and had worked for over a decade as a management consultant not only in the United States, but in Russia, Germany, and England. I had the pleasure and honor of working with the world-renowned Dr. W. Edwards Deming. So I really understood what it took to create a healthy organization. Well, I just by chance had an opportunity to work for a pharmaceutical company, and I was out of training and attended the first regional sales meeting, and the director stood up and said that we had no spending limit. That's a quote. No spending limit. In other words, we could use any amount of money to influence physicians by bringing lunches into large clinics and serving lunches to, the entire staff, which might be 50, 70 people in a large clinic. We could take physicians to dinner. We hired expensive speakers to influence physicians, not only to write prescriptions for the drugs I represented, but also to influence them for the new guidelines that had been established. These were cholesterol guidelines, and the lower guidelines have nothing to do with health. I discovered later as I became very suspicious of what was going on with my company. I started doing my own research because I didn't trust that they told us the truth in our training, and I disclosed all sorts of dangerous factors about the drugs I was carrying, and then also I continued to research and found so many dangerous facts about other leading drugs that I felt compelled to get out of the industry and to do something to warn the public, and I chose that to be a book. Diary of a Legal Drug Dealer, One Drug Rep Dares to Tell You the Truth. That's exactly what the book is about. I'm trying to tell the public the truth so that they will wake up and stop being, lambs to the slaughter is really what the public has become to the pharmaceutical industry.
And I'm glad to say, and I know you know this, that you're not alone in telling this story, and more people are coming forward and having understanding around it from different perspectives. I've had a couple of physicians who have the same understanding, have come to that understanding, that are out there giving the same information.
There are, in fact, I was in Phoenix doing book signings and interviews last week, and I had a family care physician approach me, and she was so excited about the book, and she said, over the past 5 years, I have gotten more and more away from prescribing prescription drugs and looking for the alternative methods that treat the root causes of health problems. And we had a good discussion, but she told me that she knows physicians that have been run out of their practices because they have chosen to move away from prescription drugs. I mean, there's real concern for people that take an alternative route. The establishment can go after them. They may very well go after them. And people are concerned, such as she was, that will she lose her livelihood? Will she lose her ability to practice medicine simply because she chooses not to be handing out prescriptions for pharmaceutical drugs for every patient?
That's a concern of the whole model, the whole industry. Okay, there's so many places we can go, and we only have so much time, so I wanted to go here at this point and state this, that every year pharmaceutical drugs kill twice the Americans that died in all the years of the Vietnam War. That is so huge.
Yes. In fact, to give people a visual picture in their mind, I did the math work, and it would take for people in the U.S. that have died from side effects from prescription drugs since the year 2000, it would take more than 18 Vietnam War memorials, just for the people that have died in the U.S. from side effects of prescription drugs in the last decade. That's a horrendous amount of. And so many of those are children. The pharmaceutical industry is truly preying on children, and unfortunately at times getting the government's help to do that.
Yeah, real quickly, let me just jump in here. I happen to know, I think as far as children and prescription drugs, I would go the vaccine route. I mean, that's something that I've studied for 20 years, actually, and continue to pay attention to. And so as far as how records are kept, et cetera, and how adverse reactions are reported, they're not necessarily agreed to be adverse reactions, but there is a reporting system. How does that work with other pharmaceuticals, though? Can they track it as well as they do vaccinations?
Oh, very poorly,
Okay.
actually. Excuse me, because the FDA's reporting system is completely voluntary. So,
Okay, so then you're saying that statistics that you have are coming from the voluntary disclosure, and
that's
so that means
correct.
that there really are way more than what the statistics are showing us.
Yes, the FDA admits that the numbers that they have in their system for side effects, severe side effects, including death, but not always death, it's any severe side effect
Mm-hmm.
from a prescription drug, they state that it only represents 1 to 10% of the actual numbers because they know that the vast majority are not being reported to them. It is not mandatory in this country.
Okay, so
And
therefore,
I'm not sure the public realizes
right?
that.
Okay, that's why we're going to stress this here. So back to that statement of every year, pharmaceutical drugs killed twice the Americans that died in all the years of the Vietnam War. That's actually only 1 to 10% of what is reported versus what really is going on.
Well, no, because the number that came up, the 106,000, more than 106,000 Americans per year death rate, was actually researched by Johns Hopkins, and that's when they came up with a study that showed that medical care system in the U.S. is the third leading cause of death. So they weren't just using the FDA numbers. They were looking at hospital records. They were going and digging deeper than the FDA numbers. But it's still, I don't believe, the true actual numbers. There's so many people that I have talked to that have had deaths in their families to prescription drugs, and those deaths aren't included in those numbers. Every week I hear from victims.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to stress that point.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, obviously, we can see that the pharmaceutical companies are doing extremely well. I am amazed. I live in New England where we don't do a lot of new development, and I am amazed in suburbs of Boston where over the last couple of years there is a brand new huge pharmacy on one corner of one name and another brand new huge pharmacy of another name on another corner in towns of populations of 10, 20, 30,000 people. Wow. Is that happening all over the country? I bet it is.
I bet it is. It is. It's a huge business. Well, to give you the big number, the United States is about 5% of the world population. We consume every year 50% or more of all prescription drugs manufactured.
Okay.
I mean, we are by far the most drugged nation in the world, and yet we're far from the healthiest. The World Health Organization study of healthy life expectancy showed the U.S. came in at 28th.
Ah.
So we're far from the healthiest, and we ranked 42nd in infant mortality
I was going to ask
rate.
you. I knew you would know the numbers on that. 42nd.
42nd in the world, right after Cuba. So we're by far the most prescription drug using nation, and we're far, far from the healthiest, and this includes even our infants. So we need to wake up to this. People need to, if they really want good health, they need to look to their own behavior, because that's what the research has shown, is that it's our life choices, what we eat. If people use tobacco products, that's definitely a negative factor on their health. The alcohol consumption, exercise, all of these things are what can lead to good health or prevent good health. And it's not in a pill. The answers are not in a pill.